Have you ever faced a storm so fierce that it felt like you were drowning, not in water, but in fear and doubt and life's overwhelming waves? Imagine this: a dark sea, roaring winds, a fragile wooden boat tossed about like a toy, and then out of the shadows you see a figure walking on the water. Would you believe your eyes? Would you have the faith to step out of the boat? The story begins after one of Jesus' greatest miracles. He had just fed thousands of people with nothing more than 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish. The crowd was amazed, buzzing with excitement, and many wanted to make him king right then and there. But Jesus wasn't here to build an earthly throne. He had a mission far greater. So after dismissing the crowd, he told his disciples, "Get into the boat. Cross over to the other side of the lake. I'll join you later." The disciples obeyed. They pushed their boat into the water, the wooden hull creaking as waves lapped against its sides. The air was heavy, the sky painted with streaks of fading light as evening settled over the Sea of Galilee. Meanwhile, Jesus climbed up a nearby mountain to pray alone. While his friends were rowing into the night, he was on his knees, lifting his eyes toward heaven, speaking with his Father. Hours passed. Midnight came and the sea had turned wild. The wind screamed across the water, whipping the waves higher and higher. The disciples strained at the oars, their hands blistered, their backs aching, their hearts filled with dread. The boat rocked violently, threatening to capsize at any moment. Fear tightened their throats. These were fishermen men used to the sea, but even they felt the rising panic. The storm was relentless. And then it happened. Somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning, with darkness pressing in on every side, they saw something new, someone moving across the waves. At first, terror froze them. A figure, illuminated faintly by flashes of lightning, was walking toward them. On the water, their voices cracked with fear as they cried out, "It's a ghost." The sea was already enough to terrify them, and now this? Their imaginations ran wild, their courage fled. But then, through the roar of the wind and waves, came a voice they knew so well. Calm, steady, strong, take courage. "It is I, don't be afraid." It was Jesus. He wasn't in the boat. He wasn't swimming. He was walking on the storm itself, his feet planted on the very waves that threatened to devour them. The disciples sat in stunned silence, but Peter, impulsive, passionate Peter, spoke up. His heart pounded with a strange mix of fear and hope. "Lord," he shouted above the storm, "if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water." Jesus' reply was simple. Just one word, "Come." And in that moment, Peter faced a choice. Stay in the boat, clinging to safety, or step out into the impossible, trusting the voice that called him. He placed one foot over the edge of the boat, then the other. The waves licked at his ankles, but they didn't swallow him. He was standing on the water, his eyes locked on Jesus, his faith carrying him where logic said he could never go. Step by step, Peter moved across the rolling sea, the impossible becoming reality beneath his feet. But then his gaze shifted. He noticed the size of the waves, the fury of the wind, the danger pressing in. His faith began to waver, and with it his footing faltered. Fear replaced focus, and in that instant he began to sink. The icy water swallowed his legs, then his waist, pulling him down. Panic surged through him as he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately, Jesus reached out his hand. His grip was firm, unshakable. He lifted Peter out of the waves as though the sea itself had no claim on him. Looking into Peter's terrified eyes, Jesus spoke gently, yet with a piercing truth. "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Together they climbed into the boat, and the very moment Jesus' foot touched the deck, the storm ceased. The wind stilled, the waves calmed, and the sea became like glass. Silence hung in the air, broken only by the disciples' whispers of awe. They fell to their knees and worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Can you picture it? The disciples soaked to the skin, their boat rocking gently now, their faces illuminated not by lightning, but by the awe of what they had just witnessed. The storm had bowed to his command. The sea had become a pathway under his feet. And Peter, though he faltered, had experienced the power of faith in action. But what about us? That story isn't just about Peter's boldness or his doubt. It's about every storm we face in life. Sometimes the winds of anxiety, fear, or uncertainty beat against us so hard we can hardly row forward. Sometimes we see the waves of financial struggle, broken relationships, or personal failure rising higher and higher, and like Peter, we feel ourselves sinking. And then comes the voice, steady, calm, reassuring. Take courage. It is, don't be afraid. The real lesson of this story is not that storms won't come. They will. Life will shake us, challenge us, and test the limits of our strength. The lesson is that in the middle of the storm, Jesus comes walking toward us, not to scare us, but to save us. The same hand that reached for Peter is still reaching for you today. Maybe your storm is doubt. Maybe it's the fear of failure. Maybe it's the unknown future that feels too heavy to carry. The question is, will you keep your eyes on Jesus, or will you let the waves steal your focus? Faith doesn't mean the storm disappears instantly. Faith means you can walk on top of what was meant to drown you. Faith means even when you falter, His hand is ready to pull you back up. This story is also a reminder that sometimes the safest place is not inside the boat. Sometimes the real miracle happens when you dare to step out. Peter experienced the impossible because he was willing to take a risk, to test his faith, to respond to the call of Jesus. Even though he sank, he also walked, and that's more than the others could say. So what about you? What storm are you facing right now? And what step of faith is Jesus calling you to take? Maybe He's asking you to forgive someone you thought you could never forgive. Maybe He's calling you to start something new, a business, a ministry, a dream that feels impossible. Maybe He's simply inviting you to trust Him in an area where fear has been louder than faith. The truth is, storms reveal our focus. When our eyes are on the waves, we sink. When our eyes are on Jesus, we rise. So now I ask you, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have stayed in the boat, clinging to safety, or stepped out onto the waves, trusting His call? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful Bible stories and share this video with someone who needs encouragement today. Because just like Peter, you're not defined by the moments you sink, but by the Savior who never lets you go.